There comes a moment in every chosen person's life when the very people who once celebrated them begin to question them. The ones who applauded your light now whisper about your darkness. You've been framed, not just by lies, but by perception. You've been wrapped in a story that isn't yours, painted as something you never were. And now, everyone seems disgusted. But hear this truth: when God sets you apart, He also sets you against. The chosen are never celebrated before they are separated. You were marked for something greater, and the evidence of that calling is the warfare surrounding your name. The accusations, the betrayal, the disgust, they are not punishments, they are proof. Proof that heaven recognizes your assignment and hell feels threatened by it. The enemy can't destroy your anointing, so he tries to destroy your image. He knows that if people can't see your purpose, they'll reject your presence. Being chosen means being misunderstood and often falsely accused. When destiny rests upon your life, it rarely comes dressed in comfort or approval. Those who are chosen walk a road paved with confusion from others because their path doesn't fit human understanding. You carry a frequency that disturbs the complacent, and your presence often exposes what others want to keep hidden. That's why people misunderstand you. They can't interpret what they didn't hear from God. The language of your assignment is foreign to those who have not been in the same conversation with heaven. The moment you begin to move differently, think differently, and talk differently, people start to assume something must be wrong with you. They mistake your transformation for rebellion and your silence for guilt. But what they cannot see is that you are being processed for purpose. Falsely accused, that's the burden of those with divine distinction. When your calling becomes evident, the opposition becomes louder. The enemy knows he cannot stop what God started, so he distorts it. He whispers lies into the ears of those closest to you. Suddenly, people you trusted begin to question you, not because of what you did, but because of what they heard. That's how the chosen are framed. You are placed in situations where your intentions are twisted, your character is doubted, and your motives are attacked. But this misunderstanding is not a sign that you are off track, it's proof that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. The greater your assignment, the greater your accusation. When destiny chooses you, isolation follows. People begin to fall away because they can't handle the process that comes with your promise. You start to see how easily others can believe the worst about you, how quickly loyalty disappears when your name is tested. But what feels like abandonment is divine protection. God removes those who cannot handle your next level. He allows misunderstanding to separate you from the familiar because comfort can become a cage. You cannot carry clarity surrounded by confusion. So the misunderstanding serves a purpose, it forces you to depend only on divine validation. You learn to walk with your head held high, not because everyone believes in you, but because you know who sent you. There's a pain that comes with being chosen that words can't explain. It's the ache of being innocent yet treated as guilty, the weight of being different and never understood. You begin to realize that being chosen doesn't mean being celebrated, it means being set apart, and sometimes that separation feels like punishment. But the misunderstood are the ones heaven trusts with mysteries. To be chosen is to be hidden in plain sight, to endure the judgment of men while being shaped by the hands of God. Every false word spoken against you becomes fuel for your transformation. Every accusation becomes a reminder that you carry something worth attacking. Being chosen means walking through darkness with faith that light will eventually vindicate you. The attack on your image is proof of your divine assignment. The moment you step into the fullness of your purpose, you become a target. Not because you have done anything wrong, but because your presence exposes everything that is false around you. Darkness always resists light, and your light has become too bright for those who are still comfortable living in shadows. People don't attack what doesn't threaten them. They attack what reminds them of what they could have been if they had obeyed their own calling. That's why your name is being dragged, your intentions questioned, and your character tested. It's not about who you are right now, it's about what you represent. You are a reflection of truth in a world that thrives on deception, and truth always attracts warfare. When you begin to walk in divine purpose, your image becomes a battlefield. The enemy knows he cannot touch the anointing on your life, so he targets perception instead. He knows that if he can distort how others see you, he can delay how your purpose unfolds. So he launches attacks not against your gift, but against your reputation. Lies begin to spread faster than truth, and opinions become weapons formed to assassinate your credibility. But those attacks are confirmation that you are making impact in realms you cannot yet see. Every whisper against your name is evidence that your assignment is working. Heaven recognizes it, and hell feels it. The moment you were chosen, you became a living threat to systems of deceit and spiritual stagnation. It's in these moments that you must understand the difference between your identity and your image. Your image is what people think about you, but your identity is what God knows about you. The attack on your image is meant to distract you from your true identity. If the enemy can get you to fight for what others think instead of focusing on who you are, he wins. But when you know your identity, you stop reacting to every rumor and accusation. You realize that no amount of slander can change divine truth. What God has spoken over you remains untouched, even when your name is dragged through the dirt. You can lose your image and still keep your anointing because your assignment was never dependent on popularity. It was dependent on obedience. There's a strange blessing in being misunderstood. Every time someone misjudges you, they free you from the prison of needing their approval. Every lie told about you becomes a lesson in spiritual endurance. You learn how to stay silent in storms, how to move in peace when chaos surrounds you, and how to trust divine timing when justice feels delayed. The attack on your image trains your character to be unshakable. It purifies your motives, removes pride, and positions you to serve with humility. You stop living to be seen and start living to be sent. When you understand this, you no longer see the attack as destruction but as confirmation that you carry something heaven is protecting. Rejection and disgust are tools of redirection and refinement. Every chosen person faces a moment when they are no longer celebrated but criticized, no longer embraced but excluded. It is a painful place to be, standing in the middle of misunderstanding and loneliness, but this is where the divine does its deepest work. Rejection is not a signal of your worth decreasing, it is a signal that your environment can no longer sustain your growth. When people turn their backs, it is not always betrayal, sometimes it is alignment. The path of destiny often requires pruning, and pruning feels like loss even though it's preparation. You are being refined through rejection, shaped into something that can handle what you prayed for. The disgust of others becomes the fire that burns away your dependence on their approval. When people reject you, it forces you to look inward. It exposes the parts of you that were leaning on external validation. It shows you how much of your confidence was tied to being accepted. Rejection reveals where your foundation truly stands. If your identity was built on being liked, rejection will shatter it. But if your identity was built on purpose, rejection will strengthen it. The reason it hurts so deeply is because it challenges everything your flesh depends on for security. But in that pain, something holy happens. You begin to detach from people's opinions and attach yourself to divine direction. You stop chasing crowds and start listening to conviction. What once felt like punishment becomes a compass, guiding you toward your real assignment. Disgust, too, serves a sacred function. When people start looking at you with disdain, it creates distance. That distance is necessary for revelation. God will sometimes allow people to be disgusted by you to protect you from premature exposure. He hides you behind the curtain of rejection until your character is mature enough to handle recognition. You are not being discarded, you are being developed. The disgust that isolates you is the soil in which divine wisdom grows. When no one believes in you, you learn to believe in the voice that called you. When everyone walks away, you discover the strength of walking alone with purpose. The disgust of others teaches you that you can still stand tall when your name is small. Refinement happens in the furnace of judgment. When people misunderstand your intentions, when they twist your actions, when they assume the worst, that heat purifies you. It burns away pride, ego, and the desire to explain yourself. You start to realize that silence can be more powerful than self-defense. You learn patience, humility, and discernment. You start seeing rejection not as the end but as transformation. Every no you received becomes direction. Every closed door becomes protection. Every person who left made space for something greater. The rejection that broke your heart was the very thing positioning you for elevation. The disgust that wounded your spirit was the tool shaping your strength. You were never meant to be validated by people but by purpose. The approval of men is temporary, shifting like the wind, but the validation of purpose is eternal and unshakable. When you live for human applause, you become a slave to their opinions. You begin to shape your identity around what others expect instead of who you were created to be. But when your validation comes from purpose, you stop performing and start walking with conviction. You no longer chase acceptance because you realize you already carry divine approval. The chosen cannot afford to live for the crowd because their assignment is too specific, too sacred, too misunderstood for mass acceptance. Your purpose will often demand you to stand alone, to move in directions others can't comprehend, and to hold your ground even when your name is questioned. Validation from people feels good, but it comes with conditions. They love you when you perform, praise you when you fit their expectations, and reject you when you challenge their comfort. Purpose, however, validates you in silence. It confirms your worth when no one is clapping. It reminds you of who you are when you are forgotten. It whispers strength when the world shouts criticism. Living by purpose requires inner stability, the kind that doesn't crumble under rejection or applause. It teaches you that true validation is not found in being seen, but in being sent. Every chosen one must reach a point where they no longer need to be understood to be faithful. That's when your calling matures. That's when your voice carries weight. The process of detaching from people's approval is painful because validation is an addiction disguised as affirmation. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek it: grades, compliments, likes, applause, all of it shapes our sense of value. But purpose demands detox. It strips you of every false measure of worth until all that's left is what God said about you. The more you grow in purpose, the less you depend on external praise. You begin to realize that silence from men does not mean silence from heaven. The absence of applause doesn't mean you're off track, it often means you're in divine alignment. Purpose validates through progress, not popularity. It confirms you through transformation, not attention. When you live by purpose, even rejection becomes instruction. You stop asking, "Why don't they see me?" and start asking, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" You begin to see that every overlooked season is an opportunity for preparation. You understand that your purpose doesn't need validation to be valuable. It only needs obedience to be fulfilled. The chosen must learn to move when no one agrees, to speak when no one listens, and to believe when no one supports. Because the validation of purpose is invisible to those who lack vision. You were never called to impress people, you were called to impact generations. The applause of men fades, but the echo of obedience lasts forever. Isolation is the forge where destiny is formed and character is tested. Every chosen one is led into a season where silence speaks louder than voices, where loneliness becomes a teacher, and where everything familiar is stripped away. It feels like abandonment, but it is actually alignment. Isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the divine workshop where vision is sharpened, motives are purified, and strength is built without applause. In isolation, you are separated not because you are forgotten but because you are being focused. God cannot shape you in crowded places. He pulls you away to reveal what cannot be seen when you are surrounded by noise. The silence of isolation exposes everything inside of you that was hidden by busyness. It confronts your fears, your doubts, and your dependence on others for direction. It's in that solitude where you begin to understand who you truly are and what you were called to become. Isolation is uncomfortable because it removes distractions and forces reflection. You can no longer hide behind people, titles, or performance. Every insecurity comes to the surface. Every weakness demands attention. It is a refining fire that burns away the parts of you that are unfit for the next season. Those who avoid isolation remain half-formed, but those who embrace it emerge unbreakable. The greatest leaders, the most powerful voices, the most impactful souls were all trained in silence. It was not the crowd that made them, it was the cave. In isolation, you learn to hear the still, small voice that direction flows from. You learn to trust that voice even when no one else confirms it. You learn the difference between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness drains you because it focuses on absence. Solitude strengthens you because it focuses on presence. Isolation also tests loyalty, not to others, but to purpose. When there's no recognition, will you still show up? When there's no audience, will you still prepare? When no one believes in your vision, will you still move forward? That's where character is built. Destiny is not given to those who crave attention, it is entrusted to those who can remain faithful in the dark. The unseen seasons are where divine trust is established. If you can be disciplined when no one notices, you can be trusted when everyone is watching. Isolation strips you of external motivation so that only internal conviction remains. It's where your roots grow deep enough to withstand storms that fame and attention would never prepare you for. Many fear isolation because it feels like loss, but in truth, it's where gain begins. Everything that leaves in isolation was never meant to stay. Relationships that fade, doors that close, and opportunities that vanish are simply clearing space for what's ahead. The silence you're enduring is the sound of construction. Something is being built in you that requires privacy. Destiny does not develop under public scrutiny, it grows in hidden places where no one is clapping, where no one sees the struggle, where no one knows the tears. And when the time is right, the same isolation that once felt like exile will be revealed as the womb of transformation. The lies that framed you will one day reveal the truth of your calling. Every false word spoken against you is not a curse but a clue that you carry something powerful. When the enemy cannot touch your purpose, he attacks your perception. He uses lies as tools to cloud your reputation and turn hearts against you. It is one of the oldest tactics in existence, to destroy credibility before influence can rise. But what the enemy intends for destruction, heaven always redirects for revelation. The very lies meant to bury you become the soil in which your purpose grows. They force you to build your foundation on truth instead of public opinion. When everyone believes a story that isn't yours, you are left with only one voice to trust, and that is the voice of the one who called you. The lies hurt because they distort your reflection. They make you question who you are and whether you're still worthy of the assignment placed in your hands. But lies only have power when you agree with them. The chosen learn to stand still in the face of falsehood. They learn that truth doesn't rush to defend itself, it simply endures. Every great destiny goes through a season of accusation before elevation. The story of your life will always pass through the fire of misunderstanding before it becomes a testimony. That's because truth isn't proven in ease, it's proven in endurance. When lies surround you and you still choose integrity, you become the living evidence of authenticity. The false narrative cannot last forever because time always reveals truth. The louder the lie, the greater the revelation that follows. Being framed by lies also serves a higher purpose. It separates those who truly see you from those who only see what they're told. When false accusations rise, people reveal themselves. Some will walk away without asking questions, and others will silently stand with you. Both responses are necessary. The ones who leave teach you not to depend on fragile loyalty, and the ones who stay teach you the value of discernment. The lies are a filter, removing what cannot go with you into your next season. They purify your circle, strip away illusion, and leave you surrounded only by truth. What feels like humiliation is actually divine clarification. You learn who you are, who they are, and who God is, all in one storm. In the end, the truth of your calling will outlive every falsehood. You will not need to prove anything, because truth has its own timing. The same mouths that spread rumors will one day speak reverence. The same eyes that looked at you in disgust will one day see the divine hand that was shaping your story all along. Lies cannot cancel what is divinely written. They only highlight the power of your endurance. You were never meant to be defined by what was said about you, but by what was destined for you. Every false story spoken against you is only setting the stage for the truth to shine brighter than it ever could without the darkness that tried to hide it.